It's your show.
I know. We're back. So this is the second part of Sean's journey. As we already talked about in the beginning, how he started this MMA journey and how he started with wrestling and early on in the years before his evolution started. So we're gonna continue this with Sean and Tazz as a new person and the more evolved Sean. So with this, and I asked you earlier, like how did you get that peace within yourself? And then you said that you needed to change, and you started some change within yourself. And just like in MMA, when something's not working, you need to change it up, change the strategy, right?
Yeah.
So where does that come from?
So the first thing I had to change was my mindset. Once I changed my mindset that, okay, this MMA is going to be more to me than just a way to let out anger. Once I put that in my head that it wasn't going to be just letting out anger and I was actually going to start learning the sport, and the idea of competing started kicking in a little bit more, and that thought process started occurring more and more that I wanted to compete again. Because by that point, it was like 2 years since my last wrestling match, and I started getting that itch for some kind of competition again. So I changed my mindset from, okay, this is for anger, now this is a sport that I'm gonna learn because I'm gonna compete in this. You know, so once I made that change in the mindset, I had to change my environment. That was the next one.
What did that look like?
Changing my trainers. I went from training at that place by my house, and then that's when I found Victory.
Why did you change the trainers?
I asked for a fight, and he said that he was going to look for one, and he went 3 months, and I don't think he ever looked. And I felt like I was just, we were doing the same thing over and over. At that point, I was, we were going relatively quickly, but I had already spent about almost a year and a half. And we were just going over the same kicks and the same punches over and over and over again.
So you were not learning anything.
Exactly. I felt like there was so much more to learn, and I wasn't getting that with my trainer at the time. So that's when all the mindset changes happened. It was like, all right, I asked for a fight, this guy's not giving me a fight. We went to an event to watch amateur fights, and he was hyping up my ego, which is not what I needed. And from that point, that's when I started making the changes in my mindset. And then I changed my environment. And once the two came together and I had a new environment and a new mindset, that's when I felt like I started growing and my path became a little bit more clear.
Did you at some point how did you did you randomly change the mindset? Like how was that process? Because a lot of it can be confusing for me sometimes. It's like you change your mindset, but that is not a one-day thing. I know that there's the process to that, and I know it's hard to change mindsets.
Yeah.
So how did you get to that point from the old mindset to the new mindset?
There was a lot of things going on at that time, and it was wanting to get a fight and knowing that this trainer wasn't going to do that for me. But at the same time, I didn't want to just stop. I wanted to do something better than nothing. I was only going once a week with the trainer, so I was going with him once a week, and then I was still lifting weights. I had a punching bag at my house, so I was still, trying to get at least the conditioning part as much as I could during that time while making adjustments. And around that time was also that, I got into UIC, and now not only am I looking for a change in environment in my MMA life, but now in my school life, starting a brand new school. And whereas in high school I knew people going in, at UIC I didn't know anybody going in. So it was a brand new start. So it was like, all right, I'm gonna get settled into school, and then I'm gonna get settled into, I'm gonna find that change for MMA.
So you literally changed your environment. But like with your friends and your close friends, were they like the ones before, or they were new type of friends? And how were they different?
So by the time I started MMA, to about the time where I felt like I needed to change my environment, I had pretty much the same friends. It wasn't a big group of us. You know, and I went to high school with all of them. And then once we graduated, I kind of figured there was going to be some shifting and some drifting because some of them went to school out of state. So my first semester of UIC, I still had the same group of friends. We were still hanging out and stuff. But then obviously during that first semester, you're in a new school, you start meeting new people. I started meeting new people. And then I started making new friends. And it was in that transition to making new friends that actually helped me lead into changing my MMA environment.
Were you a confident person?
Never.
Never?
Never a confident person. To this day, it still takes me a while to, I have to take a step back to look at everything that I've done and how long I've been doing this and the things that I've done and the people that I've trained with and, you know, the accomplishments I've had in, not just in MMA, but in life. It's like, I gotta look back a little bit, take a step back to look at everything to kind of almost have that confidence boost that, okay, I can do this, because there's a lot of days where I still struggle. Because in my head, and we've talked about this so many times off camera, you know, in my head, I'm still that skinny 108-pound high schooler that's still trying to find his footing. You know, and in my head, that's always there, which is a gift and a curse because it's a curse because I can't shake it, and sometimes it affects me, and I hold myself back sometimes because I still feel like that. But I think it's also partly a gift because it pushes me to keep going. You know, I'm never satisfied. You know, I'm hitting my goals in weight, I'm hitting my goals in my lifts. So, but it's not enough because in my head I still have that. You know, so it keeps me pushing, it keeps me wanting to grow. You know, I've been doing this for 10 years, but I'm still looking for different ways to adjust my strike, to adjust the grappling, not only when I'm sparring, but the way that I teach it too. And I pay close attention to my students to see what they're struggling with. Is it something that I'm not explaining? Is it something that needs to be adjusted now? Are we missing a step? Can we add a step to make it even better? So all those things, because I still have that, you know, I'm still new to the sport, I'm still a smaller guy, like I still want to grow and all that.
Yeah, and so I can see like where you can fit so well with the sport now because like you said, you have, that's the growth mindset that people talk about, like you know that it's never enough because you can always improve, you can always learn, there's always new things that you can work on. And that's with MMA. There's like it's not infinite. It's not finite. It's like infinite.
Yeah, you're never done learning.
And I see that from you. That's why with the way that you are, like you said, you do this for yourself as an athlete, as a coach, and like just as your person in general, you know. And so going back to like when high school days, and then you were able to start with an environment. You said that you started at Victory, right? So how was that? So what was that like?
It was a complete change for me. Once I went into Victory, I signed up my first day. You know, it took me a while to get in contact with them. I guess they were having fights the week that I inquired about the gym, and no one was calling me back. So I sent emails out. I was like, somebody talk to me, you know. So finally I got the call, and we set up my first free class, and I went in and I signed up on my first day. And I signed up that day. I felt like I learned a lot just in that hour and a half that I was there than I did in the year that I spent with my other friends. And that's no disrespect to him, but it was just the amount of detail that went into the way that Victory taught the sport. It was something that I wasn't used to, but it was something that I felt like I not only needed, but I wanted. That's what I was looking for. You know, so I signed up, and the next day I called my trainer. I was like, I found a new gym, I'm gonna come back. You know, and then from there it was, just like everything we talked about in the last time we talked, that almost obsessive personality that I started going every day I possibly could. And I
So you trained every day.
yeah, the schedule that they had when I started was different because I think they only had classes Monday through Thursday, and then Saturdays. And Saturdays I could never go because I was working, but I made it at least 3 times out of those 4 days during the week to get as I got started, and from there it was I knew that was the place that I was gonna finally have my first fight. And it was when I started there that I realized how badly I would have gotten my ass kicked if I would have actually gotten that fight with my last trainer. I was nowhere near ready. But that's when that part of my evolution started.
Wow. How did you know that that was the right place for you? Because I see people, like even happened to me where I didn't know where I was gonna end up. I mean, I wasn't like so into MMA, but those that are looking for a gym, or looking at home or somewhere that they know that they belong in.
Yeah.
So like, how did you even know that that was?
For me, it wasn't even a comparison of the sport because, like I said, I had that one trainer.
Not the sport, but
Yeah.
more the gym.
I had that trainer and he taught me what he taught me, and then I went to Victory as the next one. So I didn't have much to compare to with the way that people were teaching. I did like the way that they were teaching, but it was more so the environment. The first instructor I had, that camaraderie that I felt, I don't think I would be on the same path as I am now. That camaraderie that I felt with Victory is what really changed my view on the sport and reshaped my goals with the sport.
Was it because of the support?
Yeah, it was the support. It was the willingness to help, which is something that from them, that I was just starting, but they took the time to make sure that I learned, and whatever that I had already known, they asked, and I showed them what I had learned either from my last trainer in wrestling. And they'd watch it and they're like, all right, that works, keep that, let's make these adjustments, let's put these together, so it wasn't their way or the highway. It was a constant, circling of the minds and just getting everything rolling and legitimately figuring out what works best for each individual. That was training.
Did your personal life change?
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot, yeah. Personal life changed because I was spending more and more time as I grew closer with everyone at Victory and I grew closer to the goals I had as a martial artist. I spent more time there, which means I was spending less time with friends and family. So that was a sacrifice that, I lost some friends because of it, and, I had long talks with family members about it. But at the end of the day, it was something that the people that mattered understood what I was doing, and they never gave me crap about it. And then everybody else was just gone.
One thing that I have gone through is that I've lost a lot of friends, even now that I'm focusing more on myself. And now I see it as you don't lose people because they're always there to teach you a lesson.
Yep.
And knowing you from outside of the cage in the gym, like you are a very independent person. Like you don't really, it's not like you seek company from other people.
No.
And you're telling me this now. You lost a lot of people in the way. Now I can see where that's why you're the person that you are now.
Yeah.
Because really, like very early on in your life, you have lost a lot of people. So, like I said, now I see it like, hey, you lose people, but you don't lose the right people. You gain the right people.
Yeah.
Because they're there to support you from the very beginning.
Yep.
And that's what you went through.
That's exactly what I went through. Everybody that has stuck through my life for this long are still in my life for a reason. They're either there to get me out, because it's very hard to get me out of here. I'm always at the gym. I'm always here. I'm always either training or teaching or just trying to think of ways to make the gym better. So I still have friends that are outside of the gym and that don't train and stuff, and they're the ones that kind of take me out when I need a break. you know, and get away from everything MMA for a little bit. You know, they support everything that I do with MMA, and they believe in what I do with MMA, but they don't come in and train. They don't even show up to the fights. They, you know, and I'm okay with that because I need a life out of MMA as well to kind of reset my brain. You know, because like we talked about so many times, when you're too close to something, sometimes it's hard to see things, and you have to take a step back. You know, so when I'm able to hang out with people that I don't see very often or aren't part of the gym, and it allows me to take a step back to see what's going on, and maybe I get some insight from an outsider of what it looks like to them, you know, and opinions like that I'll listen to, and a lot of the times are very beneficial, you know, and it's the same thing in training, you know, sometimes we'll tell you, okay, you're throwing your cross and your hand's coming down, you're throwing your cross and your hand's coming down, and you don't feel it, and we're trying to get you to bring that hand back until you watch it yourself. You know, and yeah, and then you see it for yourself, you're like, oh, that's what I need to do, and you start doing it right away. You know, or I'll say something so many times, and then, you know, Coach Crest will come in for a seminar, and he'll say the exact same thing, and everyone's like, oh my goodness, this is a revelation, even though I have said it
a bunch of
times before, you know, but to me that stuff doesn't matter as long as the person learns, and that's why the camaraderie that I felt with Victory was so important for me to keep it once I started Warrior Evolution. You know, and coming out of the quarantine, and now that we're picking up and coming back, and watching the people, I was just having a conversation with one of my students yesterday. The people that are coming in right after the quarantine have either been people that have been with us for years and years and years, or people that are coming out of quarantine looking for something to do and are brand new to the gym and brand new to the sport. And I think it was the second week that we were back, I saw people that have been training for years helping the people that were new. And I was gonna make a comment to them then and there, but then I forgot, so I'm saying it now. That it was really, really awesome for me to see that, because that's what I'm trying to do. There's no egos here, and there's just people trying to help people as best as they can.
I agree. I love that too. Like going anywhere, if you don't feel welcome, if someone doesn't greet you, not even that, acknowledge your presence,
Yeah.
that's when you don't feel like you truly are welcome there.
Yep.
And
At Victory, I was told, find a place where you're not just tolerated, but you're celebrated. You know, so things like that, you know, obviously the sport and the techniques were things that obviously mean a lot, because I spent 7 years with Victory learning the techniques and stuff, but it was things like that take it even deeper. You know, if I just showed the techniques, then there'd be no difference between ourselves and Victory. And there'd be no, if all the gyms kind of just taught the techniques, then none of us would be different. You know, the reason that there's so many different places is because not everyone's gonna connect with people, and that's the difference. That's why I say Coach Crest, and then when I'm talking about the place where I started, I say a trainer. I didn't have a coach in him, I had a trainer, because he was showing me things, but we didn't have that kind of connection. So that's why I refer to him as my trainer. But when it comes to Coach Crest, I call him Coach Crest because he was there, and he was showing me the stuff, and he was giving me guidance, and to this day, like, he asks about the gym, he gives us advice, he does a lot of things where that's that connection that a coach and a student should have. If not, then it's just a trainer and a client. You know, so with all of that, that's what was important for me to have, and then it's important for me to continue that. For everyone that's coming in, to celebrate them and not just tolerate. You know, everyone's got different personalities, and you know, everyone, you can't be the same with everyone, but I'm very grateful that they're all here and doing what they're doing. They're putting in the work, and they're helping other people grow with them. I see it every day that I teach classes.
And I remember there was one conversation that we had a long time ago, and you're like, because I asked you, like, how is it that you do everything that you do, right? Because you train MMA like 3-4 times a week, and you lift weights like 2-3 times a week. and you're teaching classes and doing everything. And on top of that, you're our coach, well, my coach, because you're not just a good friend, you're a best friend and you're my coach. You're literally just you're watching me grow as a martial artist and as a person. But it's just the fact that you're able to do that for us. And then when I asked you one day, and you're like, you said something like, not maybe not specifically in those words, but you said something like, this is how I would want to be trained, or this is how I would want to be trained.
Mm-hmm.
And so, kudos to you because you're doing it.
Thank you. That's how I go about every day here. Once I started after I had my fight, and to this day it's been the one and only MMA fight. It wasn't supposed to be that way. It was supposed to be, I was supposed to continue fighting. Once I got into teaching, I kind of started moving away from wanting to become a professional fighter. But at least getting a decent record on the amateur ranks and get a championship belt in the amateur ranks. But my coach at the time had me go on a more strict strength training regimen because I fought at 125 and I was eating on the way to weigh-ins to make 123, and that's how much I weighed in at. So I was always small. And this is where like all the lifting and all that stuff started, because I felt like I lost my first fight, not because the other guy was better than me, but because he was stronger than me and I couldn't strong him. And that bugged me, and my coaches knew it. So coming out of that fight, they're like, we did everything right. We're just gonna bulk you up a little bit and then we're gonna get you back in there. And that was the game plan. But with that game plan came, all right, you're gonna do less cardio now. So instead of doing these many classes, you can still be here. You're gonna train these days, but now you're gonna help me teach these days. So I was like, okay, and then that's how I kind of started teaching stuff, and I was able to work with the other coaches of Victory to kind of learn the teaching side of things, and I got closer to working with Dion Ricardo, who owns Victory, and I was able to learn more of the instructor side of things. And then from there, it just turned into me teaching more and more classes. And then fast forward, I was like, there were talks of me starting up a gym and stuff. And I was like, well, let me fight again, because it's been now 7 years, or at the time it was like 5 years since my fight. So I was like, let me get one more before we talk about me just going full on into coaching and running the gym. And that's when I went through a training camp, and the second training camp I had was so much more different than the first one. I felt more confident, I felt better in striking, I felt stronger. It's just that fight didn't happen, we had 3 different people that pulled out of the fight, and the last person pulled out the fight the day of the weigh-ins, and there was no time for a replacement fight, so I didn't get that opportunity, and less than a year later I was running a gym. So it was never my goal to just have one fight. The long-term goal was to be where I am now. I just didn't know I was going to get here this quick. that wasn't necessary. But I had to think about, okay, now I'm teaching these classes. Well, I still considered myself a student at the time. So the way I kind of structured the way that I wanted to teach and run the classes that I had was, okay, this is what I feel like I need in my training to get to that next level as a fighter. So I started doing those things. And as I got more comfortable, it's like, all right, I'm being a good trainer, but now what do I need? What do I need as a coach? Like, when I think of the coaches that I've had in the past and the coaches that I have now, what is it that I need from them? And once I thought about those things, that's when I started, okay, that's what I'm gonna give to my students. There's something else that I always learned that with Victory was they gave people 80% of what they needed and 20% of what they wanted. And I took that because it was like, all right, you might want to do this, but that's not what you need right now.
Oh my God, this is so you.
I'm gonna give you what you need, and then once you got what you need, then we can look at, okay, what is it that you want? You know, so all of that, you know, and again, I learned it from the sport, and I started applying it to life, and I became a less angry person. I started getting the goals that I wanted in my professional life and then in my personal life, and all of it started coming together once I started applying what I've actually learned to do everywhere in my life.
Wow, that's a big one. So you learned these things in MMA and then you apply them to life.
Yes.
And maybe that's why a lot of us feel so off balance, because we've talked about this, how when I'm at the gym I feel so good and then I'm myself. And then I go out into the real world and I'm coming back to the gym from work and I'm not myself anymore.
Yeah.
And then I may go to school and then come back, I'm not myself anymore either. So then that's where you call me out and say, okay, you need to in order for you to be balanced, you need to be yourself all the time and practice what you learn.
Yeah.
And that's what you do, and that's how you make balance.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I just did a bit. That's it. Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
Wow, that's awesome. And overall, do you feel good? Do you regret any of your decisions, like you not fighting anymore and you becoming a business owner, even though it wasn't your time yet?
Yeah, that I don't like the word regret, because everything that I've done or everything that's happened has led me here. You know, so if I would have continued to fight as planned, I don't know if we would be sitting here. You know, do I wish that I had more fights? Absolutely. Have I ruled out that I'm never gonna fight? Absolutely not. You know, and the way that I've been training, you know, it's to see, because obviously, like I said, I fought at 125 the first time around. I fought in 2013, you know, so here in 2020, it's 7 years. And in those 7 years, obviously, I've learned a lot more. I've worked with more coaches, and I'm bigger. You know, I'm walking around now at 152, so I don't think I would fight at 125 again.
108 to 152.
Yeah. Yes. So, you know, and just seeing what my body can do, and you know, changing certain training habits and training mentalities that were just getting me injured, because I spent a good part of the past 3 years injured with different things, with my knee or with my hip or with my back, and just these nagging injuries that didn't want to go away. And so I started making adjustments. The cardio was different because I spent the majority of my time training at like 125, between 125 and 133 pounds. That's when I spent the big majority of my active full-time training. In my last training camp, I was walking around at 133. So that's what I was used to carrying around. And now that I'm walking around at 150, it's more weight carrying around, and it's a little bit different. So getting used to that new weight, and you know, eventually I didn't have to cut weight the first time around. The second time around, the last opponent that I was scheduled to fight had agreed to because it was a 1 week notice replacement for my opponent. He asked if we could do a catch weight at 130. You know, I was walking around at 132, so that was not even a weight cut at that either. You know, so I do have these goals. I met my goal weight. My goal weight was always 150, to see what kind of weight cut process I can, to see how many pounds I can lose quickly without feeling drained. You know, so I haven't ruled out completely that I would never fight again. A big part of me wants to. For me, I did. It bugs me that I lost the first time. It bugs me that I haven't been back in the cage since then. But the biggest thing that bugs me is that I didn't enjoy it the first time. I didn't have fun out there. And that's what I tell all my fighters now, is like, we're going to win, but we need to have fun with it. You know, there can't be any, you know, if you take yourself too seriously, you're stiff and you're not thinking straight, and it's going to be hard to move with it. Have fun with it. I want to go back in there for me. But because of that, and because of the mentality that I also have, everybody else comes first. For the first time in a very long time, because there was a few years where I was teaching and running the gyms, and not a lot of people wanted to fight. And I always wanted to be part of a fighting gym. So not a lot of people wanted to fight, and now that we're at a point where we have guys that are fighting and active fighters now, and there's a lot of newer people coming up that have a lot of potential to be great fighters in the very near future. So with my mindset, as much as I would want to fight again, my biggest goal is to get everybody that trains here to get their fights first. I want them to have that success, and I want them to have fun with it, and I want them to reach their goals. For me, that goal is a lot bigger and more satisfying to fulfill than fighting again. So that's why I haven't gone back in there yet, but haven't ruled it out yet.
Okay. Wow.
So,
That's awesome. That's so sweet. You guys, do you have any future goals for yourself? Any
hopefully get out of here.
okay, well, yeah. Kind of tail you here.
And I do want a bigger facility. I want to offer more. Lifting weights and the fitness side of things is such a big part of my lifestyle as well, that I do want a facility that can support a gym where people can come in and lift weights and all that stuff. And just offer a different variety of classes as well. It's all based on that.
This is for the audience. Do you have any last words?
No. If you are currently training, keep training. If you haven't started training, find something that inspires you. I'm not big on motivation. I'm a lot bigger on inspiration than motivation. Motivation runs out, inspiration stays within. Find something that inspires you. Learn it, live it, and love it. And take it everywhere you go in life, and this world will be a lot happier.
Good shit.